Bold and raw perspectives of local politics. Important information which impacts our community, nation, and world. Exposing truth, transparency, and getting to the heart of relevant issues that you just won't see in the clickbait media. And always keeping it real. It's the Michelle Tanner Podcast.
But I won't back down.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We've got big inauguration day coming up here pretty soon. I'm headed out there for that, so I can't wait. I am hopeful for the days ahead, but that does not mean that we are totally out of the woods here. So I'm really excited here in a minute to introduce you to our awesome guest today. First, I want to give a quick shout out to a couple of our sponsors. We have Bella2 Medical, that's BELLATU medical.com. Check them out. Anything from IV hydration, vitamin infusions. There's a big need for that this time of the year, especially lots of illness going around. Telemedicine visits all over the country. And then here locally in St. George, aesthetics, all things facials, chemical peels, injections, exosomes, laser treatments, you name it. Check out bella2medical.com. Also, the St. George Sunrise Market. Don't forget about this awesome market every Saturday at Segmiller Park. Awesome to support local businesses from 10 to 2 every Saturday. Check out the Sunrise Farmers Market. All right, so joining me via Skype, because he's in Texas, y'all, we've got Joe Penland. Joe from Texas, thank you so much for joining me today.
Michelle, thanks for having us on. We do appreciate it.
Absolutely. And if it's okay, Joe, I want to just read a little bit of your bio. Is that okay? Just so everyone can get to know you in case they don't already. So Joe from Texas is a family man with children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Wow. Who has had tremendous success and lived the American dream. His beliefs are both straightforward and deeply held. He believes in God, his family, and the United States of America. Joe began his full-time working career in the late 1960s in the oil field shipyards, then ironworking, carrying his tools, and climbing hundreds of feet in the air. He traveled all over the country, hanging iron on many buildings and bridges in the Gulf Coast region. Joe recognized that after a large rain, the ground conditions prohibited all work using heavy equipment, and this, of course, prevented him from working as well. As a company man and a quick learner, Joe realized that if he could help the company continue to work during wet and muddy conditions, he could continue hanging iron and could better support his family. So he borrowed $2,750 and purchased the materials needed to build what would become the first 10 crane mats that he built. His mats were a huge success, allowing him and his company to continue working in poor weather conditions. Soon after, his employer asked if he could build more mats. A word spread, other companies requested mats as well, and Joe's family-owned company was born. In the following decades, he would patent several designs and grow the company into the oldest and one of the world's largest manufacturers and suppliers of ground protection and construction mats. Through the years, Joe's business has continued to grow through hard work and innovation. He has continually worked to improve his products and develop new products to meet emerging needs. And during this time, he has come to hold many patents. Joe also has experience in the banking industry, having served on several bank boards, public and private, for over 26 years. Additionally, he served almost 3 terms on his local school board, a partial term followed by his election to 2 additional full terms. Joe's faith has been a pillar in building his business, as he has always sought to follow the golden rule of treating others the way that he would like to be treated. Building personal relationships with others has been a major contributing factor in his success and has led him to seek to give back. Joe, his company, and his family have long been involved in a number of charitable organizations that seek to help those who are in need. They believe the best America is one which fellow citizens look out for one another instead of waiting on the government as the main source of help. Amen. Joe, that's an amazing resume there. And you recently got done touring with Tucker Carlson as well. Is that right?
That is correct. We had 16 stops across the United States with Tucker and a host of guests. We sure did.
Wow, that's so awesome. So maybe let's first talk about your background and what really got you involved. Obviously, I read some of your business background, but how did you get it more involved politically and, what led to your passions? I know you're passionate about the national debt. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was raised on Social Security in the 50s when my father got sick and then passed away. And then when it came on the radar screen to me that Social Security was going to run out in, well, at that time, about 10 and a half years, and I thought that, that was unsustainable for America to have the elderly people take a cut in pay when they've paid it in and their employer matched it. I don't view it as an entitlement when you pay money in and your employer matches it, like in a 401k here at our local company. That money belongs to you. It doesn't belong to me anymore, and I shouldn't squander it or spend your money. I should have that money when you're ready to retire. And I thought that that would be the main thing for me, is to get out there and see if we couldn't get, I guess, that more on everybody's mind, not just the elderly people, because if elderly people take a cut, then the younger kids and the children and grandchildren are going to have to support mom and grandma, and that's not a good thing for anybody, and it certainly won't be good for our economy. And I thought it was just a good place to start because I've been there. It meant a lot to me and my family, and it means a lot to about 70 million people today.
Absolutely. And when you were out touring with Tucker, is that what you were talking about mostly at the events, is the national debt and how we work through that crisis that we're in?
Yes, ma'am. We talked about and gave a little story. I had a couple of stories that I told about our childhood and how we came up, and when people helped us at Christmas or brought us food and so forth when we were down and out and just literally didn't have enough to eat. And I explained to people that, there's about 50 million people in this country that are in that same condition right now. And you can't get around everybody's house, and you can't with presents, and you can't get around everybody's house with food. But I felt like if we had a change in the White House, that would be America's best chance to help that many people at one time. I know that's what God wants us to do, is help the least of his. And I thought that it was better for me to go out there and be able to talk to tens of thousands of people at one time than to just try for me to get around, because there's no way for me to get around and talk to that many people.
Yeah, it always gets me when I'll have people say, because I'm for very limited government and the proper role of government, which I believe is to protect life, liberty, and property. And obviously, as a Christian, I am also passionate about we take care of our fellow men. And I'll have people say, well, how could you possibly be against the government and funding all of these programs because you're a Christian? Shouldn't you be taking care of these people? But what is Christian about forcibly taking money and redistribution of wealth? Because taxation and forced charity is not charity at all. But I agree with you that as far as private organizations and individuals, we should be lifting one another and taking care of one another outside of government. And so, is that what you see as part of the pillar of addressing the national debt, is pulling back on some of these programs? How do we even address the debt, because it just feels so consumable and doom and gloom? Realistically, can we do something about it?
Well, I think we can. First of all, we got to stop digging the hole. We're never going to get out of this hole unless we'll quit digging. And every year we go, like this year, over $2 trillion in the hole. The Congressional Budget Office said we're going to go another $2 trillion in the hole for the next 10 years. So we'll be at $56 trillion. Well, we'll never pay our debt off if we keep adding to it every year. And there's a lot of ways that we can help accomplish that. One, obviously, we need to get rid of the waste and the fraud and the abuse. We need to quit spending money that we don't need. If there was any company, any bank, any corporation ran their business like our politicians run our government, there'd be no businesses left solvent in this country. Nobody can go 50 or 60 years in the hole and only make money 4 times like America has done. There's no reason for that. And if every board of directors argued with everybody else and never had any idea that was good, no matter which side of the conference table it came from, and in Washington it's what side of the aisle, we just going to vote for the brand we ride, whether it's Democrat or Republican. We don't vote what's good for America anymore. And, we've lost the bipartisan support, I guess, support that we've had back when Newt Gingrich was there and Bill Clinton, and we balanced the budget 4 times. If we're going to argue and fuss and fight about every program that comes across, and we have to add literally trillions of dollars of pork has been added over the last 50 years, and that's where we are today. We're not going to vote for anything that's good for America unless you put something there that's good for my state, whether I need it or not. Well, that's not the way you run a business, and it surely isn't the way you run one of the strongest country in the world, and that's where we are. We're the superpower. We have a role in the world, not just America, and we have to sustain where we are, and that's what we've lost track of. We're going to fight about everything, and we'll never get anything done.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like you said, it's not this Republican versus Democrat issue because, as a Republican, Republicans spend a heck of a lot more money than what I would want them to spend, in several administrations and instances. So both of them, both sides, are certainly guilty of needing to rein that in for sure. And, like you said, everyone's got their pet project and suddenly it's okay to spend money over here as long as it's benefiting this person. So, yeah, I agree with you. What do you think about Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon? Do you think those two coming together, are we going to see some true results from their new positions?
Well, certainly both of them are highly successful in their own right. They're billionaires, and they didn't get there because it was handed to them. So they know how to manage business and manage money and manage employees. And, this country is the largest business in the world. We have a tremendous thirst for products. We just don't build enough of them here, and we waste too much money. So if they'll put some sort of business savvy on what goes on in Washington, if we're too fat over here, we need to trim it back. If we need to do something different over here, if it's not working, well, surely you have to say, this isn't working, I got to change it, I got to do something else. But we've been doing what doesn't work for a long time in Washington because it's popular with this side of the aisle and that side. And I agree with you. It's a bipartisan problem. It's not just a Democrat or Republican problem. We can split it right down the middle. If you look at the last 24 years of the administrations, we've had 12 years Democrat, 12 years Republican, and we went way in the hole right down the middle.
Yeah. I asked Senator Mitt Romney when I was in Washington, D.C. a few months back, and I said, how can you justify, because he gave a little speech and he talked about the debt we're in and how it's a crisis and it needs to be addressed. And I said, so how do you justify voting to spend billions of dollars sending that money to Ukraine? Meanwhile, we've got open borders and, we're hemorrhaging money. How do you, if you're so concerned with the debt, how do you justify that? And his response was, oh, well, that's less than 1% of our budget, that we sent over to Ukraine, and they buy weapons from us. And, a lot of justification. But that's what happens a lot with these senators and congressmen is they justify when it's like, no, cut it off. Just say no. So, I mean, how do we get around that?
Well, you're right. 1%, and if they're pretty smart in math, I think, and if you do that 100 times, it's 100%.
Yes.
So just saying 1% doesn't matter. Well, it does. And so that's just it. The straw that broke the camel's back. There's a whole lot of old sayings that you could put right there. But just to continue to spend money because it's only 1%, I hope that isn't an infection that takes over up there, that we can spend it as long as it's 1%. Because, when you got that many 100 people in Congress and they all get 1%, that's how you're $2 trillion in the hole.
Right. So I'm curious, you being down there in South Texas, how's our border doing down there?
Well, it's hemorrhaging a lot of problems down there. We've got tens of thousands of people coming across the border, and a lot of those people now are all up through the rest of the United States. It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem for Mexico also. You got about 160 countries of people coming through their country. to get here to America. But, we kind of put the welcome mat out there that this was the best place to come, whether you were legal or not legal, and they just opened the doors and let them in. Immigration's a great thing. We've had it for a long, long time, all the way back to Ellis Island. And we need to control our border and bring people in here of the right quality of people, the right amount of people that want to make America their home and want to work and abide by our rules and our laws and be part of this great country. If you do it that way, it's a good thing. But we have to close that border. We have to get back to what we know we can do. Anytime an administration changes, the new administration unfortunately comes in. If a program's good, they're going to abandon that program because they don't want the prior administration to get credit for it. Luckily, in this situation, or maybe not luckily, we can abandon most of the programs we got today because they're all failing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure Texas, especially in those border, I mean, really every state's a border state now. I mean, even here in Utah, where you've seen huge influxes, 600% increases in illegal drugs coming through, fentanyl. And where is that coming through? That's coming through Mexico. Where is that going? That's initiated in China, from China to Mexico. Now here in, Utah, little small southern Utah, we have this huge influx of drugs. So yeah, I think that was a huge part of why so many demographics voted Trump is you can only gaslight and lie to people for so long saying, oh, the border's not a problem. There's no issue, when we can see it right in front of our faces. And I'm sure, especially from your vantage point down there in Texas.
Yeah, it's really strained our local law enforcement because a lot of our highway patrol have to go to the border and they rotate them out just to assist the border patrol down there. And that leaves the local neighborhoods with a skeleton crew of law enforcement here on the street. And we've seen the crime creep up here because of that. We've also seen the crime creep up here on car theft. I mean, they'll come up here and they'll steal a car and they drive it right straight back down to the border that night. So, there's a lot of problems across this nation, and we need to address those problems. There's a lot of problems around the world, and we need to address what we can and stay out of things that we can't fix, because all we're doing is digging this hole and making it worse for the American people. I'm of the opinion that you take care of your home first and you take care of your family first. If we have things left over, I'm as charitable as the next guy. But I want to make sure America stays strong for the next 100, 200, or 300 years. We're not even 250 years old yet, and we run our debt to $36 trillion. It'll be $56 trillion. I mean, we have completely abandoned all of the principles and the advice that we've got from go to Washington, go to Eisenhower, you just name them. They've all talked about watching our debt and being careful of this war machine. And we've got too many people that love the war machine and think that's the way we need to make money. What we need to do is quit buying so much from these other foreign countries and build it here. We don't have to just build rockets and bombs.
Right. Yeah. Amen. So I've been hearing some predictions of big economic collapses and crises ahead. What is your prediction? I mean, we've now seen, this sweeping victory from President Trump amongst all demographics. We've got now a Republican House, Senate. What do you see now, for these next 1, 2, 3 years? Any predictions moving forward?
Well, I think we'll see a lot of good in the next 2 years. And I think if the administration does a good job in the next 2 years, they'll hold the House and the Senate for the last 2 years of his 4-year term. We do a real good job, then hopefully we'll see another Republican get in the White House in 4 years. This is not a 4-year fix, obviously. We've gotten into this situation over many decades in many administrations. We have got to, if we could get in here for 20 years in a row and do what we need to do with cutting the spending, cutting the waste, encouraging manufacturing back in this country, and getting this country where it needs to be, then we'll make a move. But you got to quit spending $2 trillion over what you take in. It doesn't matter. If that's where we're going to be, then we'll never get out of debt, and we'll lose our position in the world as a superpower, and then we'll lose our position as a world currency, and then we're in a pitfall. It's going to continue to spiral downward. I was with Vivek at his house, and he called it a downward spiral, and he's correct. We have got to put the brakes on, or this thing's going to get completely out of control. I'm not going to say that America is doomed financially. We're too strong a country to be doomed by 36 trillion in debt. But we got to cut the spending out, and we got to reverse this, and we have time to do it. And I think for surely we have the administration to make those changes.
What do you think we as individuals can do to make a difference? I mean, I think you are a very great example of, entrepreneurship, and, you've got this joe from texas.com, and maybe talk a little bit more about that. And, you're out using your voice, touring with Tucker, podcast with Vivek, and, as an individual, and I love reading in your bio that you served on your local school board. And for me, that's where my passion is, I started serving on my local city council because I think it is our local communities really where these things start and end. And so oftentimes, though, as individuals, it feels so overwhelming of like, what can we actually do to make a difference? So from your experience, what would be your advice to people out there?
Well, first of all, nothing's free. I think all of us need to earn our way if we're physically able. Now, there's a lot of people that are not, and that's justifiably they need to get help, and I understand that. But if you're able to work, then we ought to have a sense of pride like we've always had in this nation, that we go to work every day. You come home tired, but it's a good tired. And you bring home a paycheck to your family, whether it's the male or the female, it doesn't matter. In most cases now it's both, because of the inflation and where we are. That's what this country needs to do. We need to quit feeling sorry for ourselves. We need to quit pointing the blame at somebody else. And let's raise our kids the way we were raised or way our grandparents taught us. Now, let's go back to the old values. They call it corny if they want to. But you roll it back 40 or 50 years, we virtually had no debt. We led the world in manufacturing. We led it in everything. People wanted to come to this country the right way, to have to have the ability to have a chance at the American dream. That's what we need to get back to. We've lost it. We had it, and we lost it because we bicker too much and we argue about everything. Whether it's a husband and wife, if you argue about everything, the kids and the family is going to suffer. We know there's a give and take along the way, and that's okay too. It can't just be one-sided. We just got to get the chip off our shoulder and pull them boots up real tight and go to work in this country, because we can outwork anybody if we'll do it. We led the world in manufacturing. We taught most of the world how to manufacture the things that we now buy, and that's a disgrace. We have to get back to it. The birth rate in this country is declining. For us to bring back manufacturing like the administration wants to do, and that's what I certainly strongly advise that we need to do. We need to make more of it, but we're going to have to bring some people in here that's willing to work, because we've got too many people that are sitting back now that are not willing to work, and it's unfortunate. A lot of them just have health problems, there's no doubt. A lot of them are taking care of people with health problems, and there's no doubt. But a lot of them are just sitting on the sideline enjoying what we give them, and I'm against that.
Amen. So well said. And I love that you brought up even within a household, when you have the husband and wife, they're always fighting. Of course, that's going to impact the whole family. And I would compare that, here, I'm sure it's happening in other states too, and even nationwide. But a lot we've seen over these last couple of years here in the state of Utah is this infighting within the Republican Party. And you've got these factions of the party that are just constantly bickering and arguing, and it's destroying the whole party here in Utah. And so I think that your example is so applicable to that as well, that we need to just start working hard, working together, stop the bickering, find the things that we can move forward on. Because, it has such a tremendous impact in actually making that positive progress forward. So I'm curious, how's it like in Texas with the Republican Party? Are you experiencing the same type of division, or is it a pretty unified Republican Party there in Texas?
I think it's more unified, but we still have division. I mean, I guess we're always going to have division. People are jockeying for position all the time. But it's amazing that people tell the American public that we're going to do this. We hear what you want. We know you're bleeding over here. We know you have a problem here. We get to Washington, we're going to change that. Somehow or another, when we get to Washington, we get in another mindset or a clique, and we want to stay in Washington. Well, we put you there, and I hope America pays real close attention going forward, like we did in this election. We put a man back in the White House, an administration back there, and that's only happened one other time in history. And that, just you think about that, and everybody counted him out. And I give him a lot of credit for just saying, you know what, I'm gonna take all the abuse and everything you throw at me, but I've got a job that's not done yet. I'm gonna go back and finish the job that I started, and I'm gonna do a better job than the last 4 years than the first 4 years, because you know what, he can kind of read the tea leaves now. It's easy now to see who's really feeding him a line of bull and who's really going to be on his side. Don't mean all the Republicans are going to agree with him all the time. Obviously, they're not. I just hope the majority of them agree with him for these next 2 years and show America that we've done a lot of good, and we keep him for to the end of the 4 years with the House and with the Senate. There's no way we can get this thing under control if we keep bickering. And I hope and pray, like you said earlier, that we get through this thing as a strong country, come out of it a lot stronger than we went in it, because we're still the greatest country in the world. And when you hear that from politicians, when they talk about, like you said, the 1%, a lot of times I hear politicians say, Joe, I know it's bad, but we're still the greatest country in the world. And you know what I tell them all? You had nothing to do with making it the greatest country in the world. It was that before you were born.
So true. Yeah. I'm curious, this contract from the American people I see on your site here, and it looks like you're there with RFK, which is awesome. Tell me a little bit about that, the contract from the American people.
Well, the contract from the American people is actually what it says. It's from the American people. I partnered with the former Comptroller General of the United States, Dave Walker, who had a real close friend by the name of Ross Perot that funded a tour that he did. He went to 27 states, I think, seen tens of millions of people. And these are things that America wants. This is not what I want or Dave Walker wants. And when I looked at it, these 10 things that were on there were vitally important to America and to the success of America. And I said, well, what we'll do is we'll get out there, Dave, and we'll talk to tens of thousands of people, reach millions of people, and see if they like this platform, like we're a third party, like we're an independent. And if they do, when we get close to the election, say October, where maybe that early voting had already started, but we get right down to the end, we'll select somebody that best fits this, and we'll endorse them and see if we can sway the tens of millions of people that are following us. We contacted some 39 million people through our journey, and in the last 10 days before the election, we contacted 6.6 million in the swing states.
Wow.
And we had a 25% open rate. So I know we had a little influence, and then we reached out to of course, Robert Kennedy decided not to run. I think it was No Labels decided not to have an independent. So it got down to Donald Trump and the Democrats. Well, easy choice for me. So we reached out to them to see if they wanted our endorsement. We would not do anything without their approval, and they welcomed it and appreciated it very much. So we did that, and when we did that, 6.6 million in the swing states heard that plea, and I hope we made a difference.
Oh, absolutely. It's just, if there is ever a comeback story, it's Donald Trump. I mean, to go from having the judicial system weaponized against you to a fabricated insurrection, manipulated to try to bring you down, to, everything in between. Even trying to take his life. It's just amazing to see what he came from to, getting the record number of votes that he had. And I think a lot of that is to thank people like you who were proactive and getting out there and helping in these swing states. RFK joining his team, and Vivek and Elon, and really this team Tulsi surrounding him. I think without them, it would have been much more difficult, and without really proactive people like yourself. So thank you for taking a stand and, making this mandate happen that we saw this fall.
Well, he certainly has the strongest bench of any administration. I mean, you just look, he's got 5 people with him that could be president, and probably some of them will be president some in the near future. I mean, he's got an awesome group of people behind him. And when you name them, they're wealthy people in their own right. They don't need the headache. They don't need the abuse. They don't need the family problems and things that come with this, but they love this country. I mean, you look, he's got a couple of Democrats with him now. You named Tulsi, you named Robert Kennedy Jr. Those people did not leave the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left them. So they had to make the move to help America. I mean, that's in their heart and soul to work for the American people. My hat's off to them, literally. Vivek, you look at him and you look at Elon, those people are brilliant people. They certainly don't need the headache. They don't have the time for it. They've got a lot of other things to do. And JD, I hope JD does an excellent job. I hope he pays real close attention to Donald Trump. I said on tour that I hope he goes to the University of Trump for 4 years and makes straight A's. And hopefully he'll help lead the party forward, or maybe one of the other 4. I mean, we got 5 people that we can choose from. And, the party's never had that before. And 2 of them are Democrats. So that's a big thing for me.
Absolutely. So where does Joe from Texas go from here? You made a huge impact in this election. Obviously, you're very passionate about the national debt. Where are you going to continue to go and focus on?
Well, we're going to try to focus on the Social Security. We need a commission like Reagan did in 1981. He put a commission together. Alan Greenspan was head of that commission. He was not your Fed chairman at that time. It took them about 18 months, and they came back with some proposals to him. He got overwhelmingly bipartisan support, got it passed, and that has kept Social Security solvent. Now it'll be up to 50 years when it runs out in 33. I'd like to have some hand in that, or at least keep promoting that. I think that would be very important to me and to many, many Americans. That would be one thing. I'd like to see some immigration reform. We've got about 10 million people in this country that have been here, been working 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And the only thing they ever did wrong was they overstayed their visa. We had people that came in this country that were vetted by America and vetted by Mexico to come here and work. And they were scared that when the year came up to go back to Mexico to re-up their visa. But they've been here paying taxes, raising children, paying a house note, putting a job first every day, whether it was shingling roofs or framing houses or putting down blacktop or whatever they've been doing. They didn't come across the border illegal. They just stayed longer than what their visa was. I mean, a lot of people stay longer at a lot of things. Every once in a while I come out and the parking meter's over. I either put another 50 cents in it or I got a ticket. But it wasn't that I was illegally parked. It's just I stayed too long. It's hard to really take all these people and put them back into Mexico when what we need to do is get rid of the bad actors, the people that have come in the last 4 years, or we'll just take it back a decade. But if you've been here and you came here and you worked and you've got good moral character, you don't have a criminal background at all, you've got a job, you're not dependent on this country, you're contributing to this country, look up. We got a shortage of workers in this country, and we're better to get it than somebody that's been here 5 to 25 years. I'd like to see some reform there. We have a law on the book called the Registry Law that started in 1929 about people that came into the country illegal, but how they could get to where they could have a legal work status. Doesn't mean you're a citizen. That's been updated. The last time that was updated was in 1986 when Reagan did it and moved the date to 1972. There's ways that we can get where we can work people in this country and get this country back where it needs to be. If we're going to be the superpower like we've always been since World War II, we have to manufacture more, and it takes people to do it. And we want hardworking people. And I don't want anybody in this country that hasn't broke the law other than staying too long. How many of us hadn't stayed somewhere too long? If that's their only crime, I think we need to fix that, and we need to fix it sooner than later.
Yeah. So are you finding yourself, in order to make these things happen and come to fruition, are you mostly focusing on meeting with our senators, our congressmen, obviously the Trump administration, or has it been more a focus of gather? I mean, you mentioned millions of people essentially in your network that was involved in the contract with the American people, or is it mostly gathering the people to be one voice to then, go out and reach their congressmen and senators to actually make this happen?
Well, I think it's going to take all the above. I'm going to stay making trips to Washington, and I'm going to continue to talk when anybody will give me an audience to talk to. Dave Walker has got some things lined up for us to do some town halls after the administration get sworn in, kind of like he did with Ross Perot. So we're going to continue to go out there and talk and tell the American people the truth. Well, neither one of us have an axe to grind other than telling America the truth. He's a grandfather. I'm a grandfather. You mentioned I'm a great grandfather. I've got number 10 on the way as a great grandchild. So I'm truly blessed. Me and Linda could not be any more blessed than we are. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to help the American people.
That's so awesome. So I'm curious, where you just got done touring with Tucker, what was that like? What's Tucker like in real life?
Well, he's funny in real life too. He's funny on the stage. He's serious when he has to be. We had some real serious conversations. We had a serious conversation the night that Donald Trump Jr. was there. Me and Tucker's over in the corner having a good conversation, and Donald Trump's talking about bear hunting. So it was really awesome. I got to spend a lot of time. I got 3 separate times to spend with Robert Kennedy Jr. One in Las Vegas. We sponsored a debate for the independents in Las Vegas because I wanted everybody to hear all sides. And Robert Kennedy was going to be there. Then he decided not to debate, but he would also get out there and talk for about an hour. So me and Dave Walker was on stage for 10 minutes before Mr. Kennedy came out there, but I got to visit a long time with him in the green room before he came out. Brilliant man, loves this country, and loves both parties. He loves America. I guess if you looked in the dictionary and looked up the word Democrat, you'd see the word Kennedy. But he's an American first. He's not a Democrat first.
That's what I love so much about RFK, and I'm really excited for his position. I'm a nurse practitioner, and coming from the medical background and seeing all the garbage that we saw during COVID and the propaganda and these injections being forced onto people, to see someone of his caliber who has done the immense amount of research that he has into the FDA, the vaccines, the CDC, I just think he is going to be such a blessing in that position for America. And what I was so impressed about with him is he was so genuine when he talked about his decision to ultimately support Donald Trump. And it wasn't about him. It wasn't about a party. It was about, like you said, putting America first. And I love that he said that he would pray, that he's been praying every day for the last several years, that God would put him in a place where he could help America's children. And I think that he's in an amazing position to really, truly help our children and this country. So yeah, what a cool opportunity that you've been able to interact with him as well. So yeah, Joe, we are down to just a couple of minutes. I'm going to give you the floor. Anything else you'd like to talk about?
Well, I got a lot of confidence in the American people. I mean, we're not, we may not all have a degree from Harvard or one of the other big universities, but we got common sense. And we're tired of the lying, and we're tired of the arguing and the bickering, and we want to see something positive for this country. We want to leave this country hopefully as good, if not better, than we found it for our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. We need to put all the bickering aside and just do what's right for this country. Me and Linda was on a plane one time, and the plane got in trouble, severe turbulence, and it got real quiet, and the pilot came on and told us that he was going to take it up to a few thousand feet more, and he would delay us getting into town, but we'd get there. When that plane touched the ground, there was nobody speaking. You couldn't hear anything, but you seen everybody with their eyes closed and praying. All of us wanted the same thing. We were hoping and praying that we had the best pilot American Airlines had, and guess what? We did. We didn't care if it was a Democrat, Republican. black or white. I just want the best for this country. And you want the best for your family, and all of us should. And that's where this administration's headed right now. That's why the Democrats and the Republicans have joined to be on that team.
Amen. So well said. And it was probably my dad flying that plane because he's a captain for American, and I think he's the best pilot out there. So awesome. No, what a great analogy to share. Thank you so much, Joe, for coming on and all you're doing to help America and your grandchildren. So let's do it again sometime. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you letting us come on. God bless.
You too. Take care. Joe from JoeFromTexas.com.
Thank you.
Thanks for being a part of the Michelle Tanner Podcast. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share. And always remember to keep exposing truth.
But I won't back down. No, I won't back down.
This has been a production from a podcast studio.